Okay, are we good? We're good. Okay. Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you all so much for joining us today. My name is Rosie Gully. I am the organizer for the Green Team here in Nevada. I am joined by Green Team members, volunteers, and fellows. The Green Team is a project of NRDC Action Fund and EDF Action. These are two national environmental groups who, in the summer of 2019, joined forces to launch an on-the-ground focused advocacy effort with organizers in 7 congressional districts in 4 states nationally. We build public support for protecting the environment, advancing clean energy, and fighting climate change. If you haven't already, please go ahead and follow us on social media at Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Green Team USA. Or if you want to go ahead and get involved directly, feel free to go ahead and email me at rosie@greenteamaction.org. So with that, I just want to go ahead and say thank you so much for Representative Horsford for joining us today. As all of you know, Representative Horsford is a champion for the environment and a protector of our precious public lands here in Nevada. In Congress, Representative Horsford is the original sponsor for the GEO Act, which would help pave the way for future investment in geothermal, a prime resource here in Nevada. He also recently helped pass the Great Outdoors Act in Congress, which was just signed yesterday into law. So we are so happy to have this climate champion join us today for this important conversation on climate change and the environmental issues impacting us here in our state. So with that, I will turn it over to Congressman Horsford.
Thank you very, very much, Rosie, and for your tremendous leadership. It's such an honor to join with all of you today as we have this conversation. And I want to first commend the Green Team and all of your green shirts for participating in this discussion about the House Select Climate Committee's Climate Action Plan and all the great work that we've been doing in the House of Representatives. I'd also like to thank each of you for the work that you do with the Green Team. This is really where democracy happens, and I can't thank you enough for your continued advocacy and participation. Moving to a clean energy economy is a key piece in addressing the climate crisis. It's something that I've believed in for a very long time, since my days back in the state Senate, when I helped to pass then the first renewable portfolio standard in our state. And the work that each one of you do to help build grassroots support for these types of important measures so that we can protect our planet, not just for our current generation, but for generations to come. Climate change, as all of you know, poses an imminent threat to all of us. And this threat grows and draws closer as the crisis worsens each day. The Select Crisis Committee was created in January of 2019 to deliver to Congress ambitious recommendations on the policies, strategies, and innovations that are needed to adequately address this crisis. The committee released a comprehensive climate action framework in June that would help put our country on a path to net zero carbon pollution by 2050 or earlier. I was pleased to see that this plan does so while prioritizing workers and environmental justice by powering economic recovery through clean energy investment and family sustaining jobs, as well as addressing the impact of environmental injustice on low-income communities and communities in marginalized areas. Achieving net zero carbon pollution really does require investing in and supporting clean energy technology. That's why, as a member of the Ways and Means Committee, I've been working to ensure green energy tax credits are signed into law. As you said in the introduction, I am the original sponsor of the Geothermal Energy Opportunity Act, the GEO Act for short, which supports geothermal energy companies right here in Nevada and across the country with an investment tax credit. Geothermal energy is a proven technology that can help serve as a renewable energy option across the country, benefiting our environment while also bringing down the high cost of energy and creating new jobs in a green economy. That is particularly important in Nevada, as our state is the second leading generator in geothermal energy. So this is an area where we can actually lead in and become a net exporter. I am so proud to have support from the Select Committee, the Select Climate Committee, which highlighted this legislation as an important tool in solving the climate crisis. I was also very proud to vote in favor of passing an infrastructure package called the Moving Forward Act, which provides tax incentives for solar and geothermal energy, expands the renewable energy investment tax credit and the production tax credit. This bill makes great strides to modernize our energy infrastructure by investing more than $70 billion to transform our electric grid, to modernize our energy infrastructure. The bill includes transforming our electric grid to accommodate more renewable energy, expanding renewable energy, and helping develop an electric vehicle charging network, something that Nevada is already starting to implement. It also includes my provision to provide a tax incentive for dynamic glass, which is an important technology and new technology to make buildings more energy efficient by reducing the amount of heat trapped in buildings. The Climate Committee's plan also seeks to make public lands and water an important part of the climate solution. All of you know this, but public lands and national parks make up over 50,000 square miles of my congressional district and provide Nevada with nearly 90,000 jobs and more than $1 billion in tax revenue. So I've been working to protect these lands as a member of the Natural Resources Committee, and I'm happy to have the committee's support in doing so, especially Chairman Grijalva. A big issue that was just at the forefront of this work for Nevada was protecting the Desert National Wildlife Refuge. As many of you may know, Representative Rob Bishop of Utah introduced an amendment to the National Defense Authorization Act to essentially allow the U.S. Air Force to manage the refuge. This would have guaranteed the management of more than 840,000 acres of the refuge to the Air Force and would have excluded the Fish and Wildlife Service's primary jurisdiction over the land that they should control. Such an expansion of their training range would have also amounted to a land grab detrimental to our conservation efforts and would have restricted access to the public, as well as impacted a number of our tribes. I recognize that this was an affront to Nevada's lands, wildlife, and people. So in response, I introduced an amendment. It's called Horsford Amendment 342, which fixed Representative Bishop's poorly crafted policy, and I'm proud to say was passed unanimously by the House as part of the NDAA. Now, the refuge will be managed by professionals with the Fish and Wildlife Service, not the Air Force. Additionally, the Fish and Wildlife Service staff and tribal communities who have had limited access to these lands for nearly 20 years will have increased access to the refuge, improving management on the ground. I've also ensured that the public will have a seat at the table by establishing an intergovernmental committee for the Air Force, Fish and Wildlife Service, tribal nations, the state, sportsmen, environmental groups, and the public to come together and resolve any issues regarding range management over the next 2 years. As a result, the refuge will remain intact for generations to come, while the public and other groups will be able to come together to address the issue as a community. Another issue facing Nevada in the NDAA was President Trump's ill-proposed attempt to restart nuclear testing. which would occur in my congressional district. So I co-led an amendment that was included in the final NDAA that will prevent the Trump administration from using any federal funds on nuclear testing in the next fiscal year, keeping dangerous explosive testing out of our backyard and away from our loved ones. These are the issues facing us in Congress, but I really want to hear from each of you on the issues facing the environmental community and how working with my office, we can help move those issues forward in Congress. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity to join the Green Team in all of your advocacy and great work. And I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you so much, Congressman. I couldn't agree more with everything you basically said. And yeah, I'll just jump into questions with first up one of our fellows, Ariane.
Hi, Congressman Horsford. I'm Ariane. I'm a Green Team Fellow. Thank you for co-sponsoring the Great American Outdoors Act. Can you tell us more about the bill and what it will do? In addition, how does it support the actions outlined in the Select Committee report on the climate crisis?
Well, thank you. It's Ariane?
Yeah, Ariane.
Great. Well, the report sets out to protect our lands and waters by conserving at least 30% of all US lands and ocean areas by 2030 and improving nature's resilience to climate impacts. The Great American Outdoors Bill supports our public lands by providing permanent funding for the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which this fund has existed for over 50 years and primarily has been funded by oil and gas drilling royalties to conserve public lands and waters. Well, finally, with full and permanent funding, the fund will be able to support projects in communities throughout the country, but right here in Nevada, that need environmental protection. The bill also establishes the National Parks and Public Land Legacy Restoration Fund to help address the maintenance backlog at our national parks, providing agencies the resources that they need to address the $22 billion of deferred maintenance backlog. So this was something that was done in a bipartisan manner. I want to commend, obviously, the House and the Senate, and so proud that this was signed into law yesterday. So congratulations on all of your great work.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Up next is Linda Stout, one of our volunteers.
I'm unmuting myself. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Linda Stout, and I live in Las Vegas in the 4th District. I'm here in Centennial Hills.
Awesome.
And I've been part
of
of
the
the
most
Green
important
Team.
people, you're a constituent.
Yes, yes. And I've enjoyed all the town halls that I've been to see you at, so thank you for doing them. My question this relates to the SCC report. The SCC report calls for improving and maintaining infrastructure for natural gas pipelines in consideration of the climate crisis, but it does not commit to stop building more pipelines. This is inconsistent with the science that tells us that we must rapidly transition away from fossil fuels and focus on 100% renewable energy. What is the timeline for Nevada as we transition to renewables such as geothermal, solar, and wind, and start phasing out natural gas, which accounts for almost 70% of Nevada's energy, none of which is received here in Nevada, or none of it which is, we don't have fracking or that here in Nevada. And what is the progress on the implementation of the GEO Act? Thank you.
Thank you. Well, I really do appreciate your question, Linda, and thank you for joining today. This is in many ways an issue of federalism. Again, I know all of you worked very hard in 2019 during the Nevada State Legislature, where again, they increased the percentage for the renewable portfolio standard, the law that sets the minimum amount of electricity that big Nevada electricity providers must get from clean renewable energy sources like solar, wind, and geothermal. Nevada was once at the forefront of renewable energy policy. It became the fourth state, in fact, to help establish minimum renewable energy standards back in 1997. And then again, I worked on that to increase it in 2009 when I was in the state Senate. However, it has been since really we've fallen behind, quite honestly. And I know that the state legislature is working to address this problem. On the federal side, I continue to use my position both on the House Ways and Means Committee as well as Natural Resources to promote tax policies that make solar, wind, and geothermal sources of energy more beneficial. One of those bills that I am championing is the GEO Act that will provide a 30% tax credit for geothermal resources. And I'm fighting very hard to get this legislation passed, as it will be very critical for Nevada. So we are looking for every opportunity to have it included in different bills wherever possible. Again, we were successful in getting part of the tax credits included in the infrastructure bill, but specifically as it pertains to other bills, you know, it's one of those things that it's a negotiation process. So we have to find the best vehicle when it comes. But I'm hopeful that as we get through November and we have new leadership in the White House and the Senate and in maintaining the leadership in the House, that these are the policies that are going to move our country forward, help us come out of this pandemic and build back our country stronger.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you so much, Linda, for asking the question. Next up is actually Linda's son, Bryce, who is a fellow of ours.
Hi, I'm Bryce. I'm a Green Team Fellow, and my question regards this. The language in the SECC report calls for embedding environmental justice reforms into most new and existing policies, since environmental issues disproportionately impact low-income communities and income communities of color. As we work towards a clean energy economy, what policies must we pass to ensure that it is an economy that can truly work for everyone, not just a privileged few? And how can we make sure that environmental benefits are felt in communities, especially low-income communities and communities of color?
Great question, Bryce. Thank you so much for raising it. And it is something that is very important to me personally. Obviously, you know, my own background, and something that I believe we need to address from the standpoint of generations of communities being left out and left behind. So that's why, from a standpoint of helping African American, Latinx, Asian, Pacific Islander, and Native Americans, the environmental justice movement addresses a statistical fact. And this fact is people who live, work, and play in America's most polluted environments are commonly people of color and the poor. So that's the reality. That's not, you know, the statistics don't lie. That is why we must ensure that environmental policies do not negatively affect communities of color. So recently, I was pleased that the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, for example, was canceled, which would have been detrimental to our environment, and it would have detrimentally affected a number of indigenous communities. This is one environmental win, but more still needs to be done. So I'm going to continue to use my position on the House Natural Resources Committee to make sure that environmental justice is equitable and equal, and it's inclusive in every bill that we advance. Communities that have been left out and left behind really do require that this be part of the conversation in every respect. So I really appreciate, Bryce, you bringing that up. It's very, very important, and we're going to keep pushing on it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Congressman. And I couldn't agree more. So our next question asker is going to be from Terry. Our question is, who is also a constituent in CD4. You're still muted, Terry. One second. There we go.
I can't get used to all this. Hi, Congressman. This is Terry Senecal. I live up in North Las Vegas.
All right.
Yeah, one of your constituents for sure. The House recently passed a major climate-friendly infrastructure bill. Which provisions are you most excited about that will help benefit us, the Nevadans? And also, what can we do to help these provisions garner support in the Senate?
Well, thank you so much. And it's great to have North Las Vegas represented here today as well. And thank you for your involvement and participation on these issues. Specifically on this issue, I lose you?
Yeah.
Sorry, specifically on this issue, you were asking about what provisions of the bill am I most excited about? And one of the provisions that I'm most excited about are the workforce training provisions. I think as many of you know, my background is in workforce development and training. Before I went to Congress, that was my career, was helping other people get the training and the skills that they need to enter the workforce. And that is why I'm such a big proponent of a green economy, is because we need to create new jobs and we need to diversify our economy, but we need to do it in environmentally responsible ways and ensure our increasing energy demands can be safely met as our state grows and our temperatures rise. So the Moving Forward Act invests over $70 billion to move us towards this clean energy future. And unfortunately, as usual, Mitch McConnell has failed to pass meaningful legislation in the Senate. The House has acted. We've actually passed more than 400 bills, more than 300, I think nearly 350 of them with bipartisan support. And sadly, the Senate just won't act. So it's now time for the Senate, Republicans specifically, and Mitch McConnell to do their job and pass the Moving Forward Act. It's good for the environment. It's great in creating new good paying jobs and ensuring we increase energy demands that are safe to help meet our state's growth.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I love that answer. Okay. So next up is Jack Levine.
Good afternoon, Congressman. I'm Jack Levine, another one of your constituents.
I love it. I love all these wonderful people.
Not only wish you a good afternoon to all of the other Green Team members. As far as in the area of solar energy, the Gemini Solar Project, which is a utility scale photovoltaic solar farm, has been federally approved to move forward in Nevada. Can you tell us more about this project? And are there more utility solar projects underway to meet our clean energy goals?
There are, and that's what is so exciting about kind of the opportunity that we have with solar, is that there are a number of great solar projects now that are moving forward. Um, so specifically, as a member of the House Natural Resources Committee, you know, as I said, I understand the important role that solar projects have in Nevada. I also understand the importance of these projects going through all of the proper permitting, such as NEPA, which the current administration has continually undermined and literally tried to roll back. I have written to the Trump administration on their affront eroding NEPA provisions, and will continue to do so because it's just wrong. Now, the Gemini project is a 690 megawatt integrated solar photovoltaic and battery storage facility proposed to be built on federal lands near Las Vegas. It is expected to be the biggest solar power facility in the United States, as well as one of the biggest renewable energy projects of its kind anywhere in the world. It's one of a number of the projects that are slated to be operational, including several that are in my congressional district, and we're proud of that. Some of these projects are at Harry Allen Solar Project, the K Road Moapa Solar Project, and the Moapa Solar Project. All of these projects are working to ensure that Nevada meets its renewable portfolio standard requirement that was signed into law again in April of 2019. And all of them are going to help us become more energy independent and really a net exporter of renewable energy. So they're moving along. As long as they follow the permitting process, then I think then I'm all for them.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm on to Martha Stimson, who's going to go ahead and ask the next question. Martha, are you ready?
Okay, I think I'm on. Good afternoon, Congressman.
Hi.
I'm Marty Stimson, and I live in Sun City, Summerlin, in Las Vegas. My question is, more than 620,000 clean energy workers have lost their jobs. And given that Nevada is such a popular tourist destination, decline in travel and related industries, like the service industry, has hit the state particularly hard. How do you see Congress developing and implementing policies to both put people back to work and also address the climate crisis in the midst of a global pandemic?
Yeah, this is one of our greatest challenges right now. As you know, Nevada, again, unfortunately leads the nation in the rate of unemployment. We have nearly 30% unemployment. And there's key sectors, as you indicated, like hospitality, that are disproportionately impacted because of the inability or the fact that it's just not safe for people to travel. So our approach, in my view, to this pandemic needs to expand opportunities for families and workers, again, now and for generations to come. That's how I approach it. Renewable energy, in my view, provides this opportunity to address both crises at once. By investing in clean energy to help strengthen the existing infrastructure and expand its use to meet our needs both now and in the future, we can put people back to work and create new jobs, as well as lower living costs for many Nevadans. So that's why I introduced a bill called Back on Your Feet. It's an act that would provide critical assistance to those unable to work because of the pandemic, and to those who can safely return to work by both extending federal unemployment assistance and providing what I am calling a one-time back on your feet federal payment of $3,600 to smooth the transition for those re-entering the workforce. We know a lot of people over the last few months who incurred a lot of expenses, and the last thing that they need is a burden as they return to work. So whether that's covering costs for housing or childcare, transportation, we want to provide them those extended benefits for those who aren't able to return to work. But for those who are, we want to give them a $3,600 return to work bonus, if you will. So we are working hard to try to get this included in one of these final packages that Congress is now negotiating.
Thank you so much. That sounds wonderful and like an incredible, just an incredible piece of legislation that we need to get through. So thank you so much for that. And next up is one of our fellows, Rashida.
Thank you, Rosie. Hi, I'm Rashida. I just wanted to thank you, Congressman, for being here. It's such an honor for us to hear you talk about your opinion and your leadership regarding the current climate crisis. So my question is as follows. So Congressman, you've been really passionate about the 2020 census. Many people may not realize how much the census impacts environmental issues. For example, census data helps the government decide where to deploy help in the case of extreme weather. And census data helps regulation do risk assessments to decide if polluters get permits for their projects. How has the COVID-19 affected the data collection process? And what can we do to make sure every Nevadan is counted? How could potentially suppress the wrong numbers impact Nevada's commitment to a clean and just economy?
Thank you, Rashida. And it's really my honor to talk to all of you because you're such champions on climate change and the environment. And I'm so excited that you brought up a question about the census and how it relates to the environment and climate, because they really do relate. And I've been chairing a task force on the 2020 census. So I have learned a lot, and I've been trying to promote making sure that we have a fair, accurate, and complete count for the 2020 census. To answer your question, the results of the census will help cities plan public funding of green programs. Responses to the 2020 census will inform funding for programs such as federal transit capital investment grants that can be used for public transportation and water pollution control grants. Communities can use funding from these programs to gear their efforts towards improving infrastructure and sustainability. Last year, unfortunately, the Trump administration tried to add a citizenship question to the census, really in an attempt to discourage many people from responding to the census for fear of being targeted by the government. And then recently, the Trump administration issued what has now been determined as an unconstitutional presidential memorandum by many experts seeking to exclude non-citizens from being counted in reapportionment for Congress. But I want to let you know, we're not going to let this administration violate anyone's constitutional right to be counted. So I introduced an amendment to the House Appropriation Bill that will nullify the effect of Trump's executive memorandum that would require federal agencies to share citizenship data. The House voted unanimously to pass my amendment in the second final spending bill, which did pass Congress, to protect census citizenship data. This is a huge win and a message to the Trump administration that we cannot exclude and will not exclude people from the census. We've seen multiple attempts at discouraging people across the country from participating, effectively denying them their constitutional right to representation and federal funds. So the best way to push back against those efforts is to make sure that you, your loved ones, your neighbors, your coworkers, your friends are all counted in the 2020 census. Now, you may have read that because of the COVID-19, the Census Bureau had requested that the count be extended through October 31st. Now they're getting pressure to cut that date back to September 30th. This would detrimentally harm a lot of hard to count communities, particularly communities of color and rural communities that have a lower response rate. And so we also are working right now to try to prevent that from happening as well. We want the count to continue. Obviously, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't want to shortchange or short shift this process And I really do need all of your help in getting this message out over the next, really the final few weeks of the Census 2020. There's nearly $1 trillion of federal funding that comes to the states every year from information from the census. In fact, Nevada gets over $6 billion of federal funding per year from information that comes from the census. And we only get one chance every 10 years to make sure that every single person is counted. So thank you for raising it. And I really would appreciate all of your help. Social media, post it wherever, make sure that people are counted. Every single person who resides in the United States as of April of 2020 must be counted.
Yes, couldn't agree more. And this is your daily reminder that if you haven't filled out your census already, please do.
Okay.
It's easy. It's very easy. Okay, perfect. So our last question, our last but not least, is from one of our fellows, Michael Stella.
Hey there, Congressman. My name is Michael. I'm a fellow here in Nevada. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to you today. So my question is, here in Nevada, we have limits on who we can get our energy from, which creates a monopoly on the source. So is there a provision within the GEO Act that would ensure no single company benefits from geothermal?
Great question, Michael. Thank you. The GEO Act applies to utilities throughout the country. So it does ensure, let me say it like that, that a single energy firm does not benefit from this legislation only. But what is most important is that this 30% tax credit addresses the climate crisis. That is why the Select Committee singled out my legislation as a step forward to protect our climate for future generations. You know, I'm a proud champion of this legislation. I know it's beneficial to Nevada and our nation. I'm looking forward to getting it passed as a part of a larger package. And then we're going to need all of your help to make sure that it gets implemented the way we intend, that protects individuals and, as you said, ensures that there is competition in the market.
Okay, awesome. Love to hear that. And well, with that, I just want to say thank you again, Congressman, for taking the time to speak with us and for taking the time to also talk with us about your commitment with the environment. And I'll just give you the last few minutes to go ahead and close out. And yeah, just thank you again.
Well, thank you very, very much. It's been great to join with all of you to answer your questions. And let me say this, you know, my job as a representative in the House of Representatives is to advance legislation that my constituents determine as important. Many of you are constituents. And so my ask is to continue to stay engaged, hold me and others accountable for the work that you would like to see on the climate crisis. As I said, this is an imminent threat, not just to this generation, but to our children and our children's children. And we simply cannot keep going under the status quo. Things must change. And we need bold action and solutions that are really going to move us forward. So I'm open. I want to learn. I want to hear from you. I know several of my staff who work on these issues are on this call as well, and I want to thank them for their hard work. I can only do my job because of this great team that we have and the professionals who work with us, who guide really my decisions on these issues. So continue to reach out to us. Email us, call us, tell us what we're doing right. If we happen to get it wrong every once in a while, let us know that too. But you know, most importantly, stay engaged in the process, because if you're not engaged, then that means that the issue is not being advanced in the way that it needs to be and that it should. There's a reason that you care about this issue, and that is all the passion that we need, is to hear your reason and your justification. Maybe you have a health issue. Maybe you're concerned about environmental injustice and how it has impacted communities of color and other marginalized communities. Maybe you are an environmental champion and you just want to see better protection of our limited resources. Whatever the reason, share that as part of your advocacy, because it does help when we know why it is you care about the issue that you care about. So thank you again for having me. I really do appreciate it. Keep it up the great work, Green Team. I'd love to see the shirts. I'm sorry we're not able to do this in person as we normally have done, but this is a great way to continue to push these issues on a digital platform. And I really have enjoyed being with all of you today. So stay safe, stay healthy, and stay informed, and get out and vote this November. It's so, so important to our democracy.
Yes, that get out and vote 100%. I've said it a lot today, but thank you again, Congressman. I just want to go ahead and say before we have everyone get off, we're just going to do a final photo with everyone. So if we could take our big happy smiles for Susan, that would be great. Just let us know when we're good, Susan. 2, 3, go. Great. You look wonderful, I'm assuming. And then last but not least, before I let everyone go, I just want to go ahead and let you all know next Tuesday, we have a day of action going on where we're going to be writing letters to our members of Congress about the Select Committee report. We're going to be hearing from panelists from various organizations such as Moms Clean Air Act, the League of Conservation Voters, and PLAN. So it's going to be a wonderful event. It's going to be starts on Zoom next Tuesday at 3 p.m. I believe, and it'll just be a wonderful event with us writing letters to you. So thank you so much. If you're interested, I will be sending an email today. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Vote blue, not orange.